Welcome to the Tom Castro Shooting Academy podcast. You have now entered the next level. So I've had a couple of questions. One of them was, I guess, and I'll ask you this first before we move on to the next, because we're definitely going to get into limited 15 conversation, but what is the direction that you have personally for USPSA? Because you have an election coming up here in how many months? 4 months, I think, is what it is.
6 months.
6 months. So you got 6 months before an election comes back up for you have to go campaigning. Well, I guess you're going to be campaigning for the next 6 months if you even have time for that. But you're going to sit down and, a lot of the conversations have been happening with the divisions. So I've been in the sport 4 years and I can't remember if I was confused by the divisions, because luckily I had some shooters in my area that I started at that were able to explain to me the divisions, right? They explained to me the divisions. So I understand how it can be confusing because we do have quite a few divisions, but I don't shoot all of those and I don't have to explain a lot of those. Like a lot of the new shooters that we bring in, we just put them right in a limited, right? Because most guys they don't have enough mags for 10 rounds for production. They don't have enough equipment or, mag holders or anything to production, right? It's a great division. It's just because of the round count, it keeps people from being able just to truly jump in. Most stages are 24 to 28 rounds. So at 24 to 28 rounds, there's 3 reloads or 2 reloads at least. Most guys are lucky to have 2 mag pouches that start. So that's why a lot of them, we just put them we just tell them like, look, you're brand new, you're limited, just try limited, right? So you can have all the rounds that you can in your magazine, which sucks because they're not going to be competitive, but they're not competitive anyway at the beginning, but they don't know that, right? They think they're going to win the match when they get there, a lot of guys. So it's like, do you feel like at this point we have too many divisions? Or let me rephrase it this way instead of making you answer your personal opinion, because is the USPSA looking to minimize divisions, or do they feel like there's too many divisions? Let's start with, let's ask it that way. Does the USPSA personally, are you guys as board members and the president of USPSA having conversations thinking, wow, this is too confusing for people? Or is it just, this is the way it's always been? This isn't really that big of a problem. We just have a few people that don't like it.
So I think there's really 2 ways to answer that question. One was a discussion I had with the regional director, which is if you look at the way the organization is structured right now, like any other business, there's usually somebody that is trying to think about like, what is the direction the organization is going, right? What is the strategic direction, right? What are we doing 3, 5, just kind of this totally outside the box of, hey, what should the sport look like? And from what I can tell, that kind of structure doesn't exist, right? Because we don't have a very big back end, right? Most of the permanent staff that you have there, it's a much leaner organization than I think people recognize, where having these sort of strategic philosophical discussions on, well, what is the nature of the sport? Is it supposed to be martial? Is it more of a sport? Can it be a sport that is practical, that still has martial elements to it? And then what do the divisions look like? Those philosophical discussions occur, but they occur kind of here and there and not necessarily in a sort of, hey, you 3 guys, right? Like, I want you to just think like, hey, do these divisions make sense? Does this division make sense? And then bringing it back to the board and going, okay, these are some ideas that we have on divisions based on, where we see the markets going, where the trends are, right? I mean, look, I love production when I started. I liked the reloading. I liked irons. That's what I had. And at the same time, you could also philosophically say, well, is production really supposed to be a 10-round division if it's supposed to be a division that, some guy can show up off the street with what they buy at a gun store and shoot a match? And the answer is not really, right? I mean, we're going to ask them to buy more bags and do all these other things. Is it really fair to put them in limited, right? So when we look at the participation numbers, right, limited is roughly 18% of participation. But we kind of know that of that 18%, half of them are guys that really should be shooting production. We just tell them to load up and shoot the limited. So the discussion is happening. And I think that a better answer to that is, where are we looking as an organization strategically for, hey, we're still dealing with all these little things here to try to, massage the rules. But big picture wise, is this something where we would go, okay, open kind of makes sense. It's kind of the F1 division. Revolver and single stack, yes, from a participation perspective, you could argue they don't belong, but at the same time, they're a unique enough platform. And then you've got everything in the middle, and that middle is really where it's we've tried to basically make divisions based on mechanical differences or sighting system differences, and we haven't necessarily sat down and go, well, is this really how we should separate things, right? So having that sort of strategic committee, which I wanted to, talk about with the board before the in-person board meeting, is, hey, you guys are here to look at, hey, 3 years down the road, does this division structure make sense? And, even those ideas that people have talked about, right, with high cap optics, low cap optics, high cap irons, low cap irons, major, minor, so on and so forth, those discussions are happening at IPSC as well, where it's like, hey, this is really kind of where we could potentially see that. But when you're talking about a significant change, right? I mean, change is hard. Right. I mean, you started off with PCC, PCC first comes out and everybody thinks PCC is just like, oh God, why is this thing in there? But I mean, even when you think about carry optics, right? I remember when Phil Strader was first coming up to carry optics, we had a guy out in Colorado that basically shot it open. And the responses to carry optics at the time were very similar to the responses about limited optics or anything like that. Yeah, there's a division for it. It's called open. And I don't think anybody could have foreseen, I'm not even sure Phil Strader could have foreseen that, it would become 40% of our participation, that it would take off like wildfire.
I think he saw it ahead of time. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. He is probably, the SIG was probably one of the first guns in USPSA that they really produced a gun for, well, look at Max Michel, bro. The guy shot it for 5 years with almost nobody in it. Right. Not to say didn't earn them. He's amazing. But what I'm saying is not the real competition didn't really catch on until really in the last 2 years. So, I mean, I remember when I started 4 years ago, I remember my buddy telling me, dude, you got to do carry optics. And I'm just like, yeah, but the fucking dots are constantly breaking. I'm good. Like, I don't want to fix my shit all the time. Little did I know that I really like the red dots, but now, I mean, the equipment's better. You can buy a production gun with a red dot, even if it's not specifically what you want, but you can buy a damn production gun with a red dot now. The industry's changed. We've changed with it. And I think a lot of shooters have shown that they changed with basically what, they like it. It's not just, I don't really shoot divisions for competition. I've had somebody ask me that. Actually, that's one of the questions I had. What makes me shoot carry optics? I love the gun. I love the division. I love everything about carry optics. I love that the majority of my students shoot carry optics, but I love the freaking Canic Rival, dude. I love the Canics. They fit me. I love that gun. It's, you know what? I will choose it over any other gun that I own. I mean,
so when are you buying the steel? When are you buying the new steel from that just came out?
I might be going to the SHOT Show to hopefully get on beg and plead to find some sponsorship from Canic this year. I don't know. I don't know.
What, are you going to be at SHOT Show?
I'm going to SHOT Show this year.
All right. Well, Jody and I will see you there then.
Oh, that's awesome. Good. So I'm going to go there and try to grovel for some for like a screw on the grip or something. I don't know. Just I've never been. The shooting academy is growing. I just kind of want to see what it's like. I feel more of the industry now than I ever have. So it'd be interesting to kind of see what it's like. But crap, where was I going with? So you brought up something in that conversation earlier about participation numbers. And I'm really interested in, because I hear this a lot and I don't like it. I hear this all the time that we should get rid of a division because nobody shoots it. So at what point do you get rid of a division? Let me ask you this. What is USPSA's opinion, like as a group? Like obviously you have these conversations with board of directors. Is participation a thing that creates decisions? Like, we need to eliminate single stack, or we need to eliminate revolver because no one shoots it? Or is that even in the discussion? Because I don't like the fact that because it's not the most popular division, we just eliminate it. It doesn't make sense. Like production right now, if you change to 15 rounds, I think you would see limited numbers go way down. I really do. I think you'd see numbers go way down, but and everybody would start going back into production because now they can shoot their normal division and have a chance to win that division like they would normally. But again, that's just my opinion. To me, rounds at this point are what bring most people to divisions, right? A lot of people love PCC because they don't have to reload. They get to shoot the entire time. A lot of people love limited because they get 20 rounds instead of 10 rounds, even though it's iron sights. Major versus minor. A lot of guys like major. A lot of guys hate major because of what it costs, but they get to shoot 20 rounds, right? So, I mean, I think round count at this point is something that most people are choosing their divisions for. So is that something that USPSA is looking at? Like, all right, well, single stack is a classic division. Like we have its own nationals. We used to, and it sells out all the time or does really well. I thought, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, but when it's single stack by itself, a lot of people participate in that. Right. But if you give someone the option of single stack versus carry optics, you're probably not going to get much of a decision there. It's going carry optics, right?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as like actual activity and participation, that's only one aspect of many. That's only one data point to consider. It's not the only data point. Again, right. We sort of talk about revolver and single stack. They are two unique divisions, right?
But it is a consideration.
A consideration maybe in terms of like what you do for major, like for a nationals or for a major match.
No. I mean, as in eliminating the division, like would that go into something to put it on the table to eliminate a division? Like, is that the main driving source? Like, let's just say like revolver is a good example. Not a lot of people shoot revolver, but when you have a nationals that allows revolver that, people 150 people shoot it, 100 people shoot it. Well, I don't know what the last one was, but I do remember there used to be about 100 shooters that were shooting revolver.
Yeah, I think those numbers sound about right. But as far as participation, it could be one of many considerations, but it's not a primary consideration.
Okay. Yeah, I don't participation in divisions, I think, goes up and down. Right. It just like PCC was one of the most popular divisions for a long time. And now it's not the most popular division, or it's not the second or the third, it's falling away to some of the pistol divisions again, but it's still a popular division. So at what point do you say, oh, well, it's not the most popular, let's get rid of it? I just, those are things like where we get to a point where the whole point of this sport is so everybody can play.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be practical shooting at the end of the day, not pistol shooting. It's practical shooting, and PCC has a place.
So when does the conversation come into, like, I want to open this up a little bit because I want to ask Tyler this question, because Tyler was a production shooter. I've met Tyler when he shot irons and shot production solely. Like that's all I remember him ever shooting. So what changed? Because now you shoot nothing but carry optics, right?
Yes.
So why did you get out of production? What was the reason?
Because in my mind, I wanted more of a challenge. And so the challenge to me was, in this case, not 10 round stage planning. It was all the really good shooters are shooting carry optics now. So I better join the club, because when I moved here to South Carolina, at every local, I was like the only production shooter. And that really sucks. Like it sucks being the only person in your division and everybody else is shooting limited open and carry optics. And there's like one revolver guy and one production guy. That was me. So I just was like, dude, tired of this. And I switched to limited at first because it was just to have the round count, to try to, I'm actually, I care about the overall results, not just the division results. So I was like, I want to compete with all the open guys as well and test myself. So yeah, it was mainly just round count. Like you said earlier, rounds made me choose a different division. And then I decided one of the big things for me too was I didn't want to go all the way across the states to Colorado to shoot production nationals at that time, where it was going to be at Colorado. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to get a dot and I'm going to just do it, here and not go all the way to Colorado. That was one of the big driving forces, was just, nationals and where it was located. But, and then I switched and I was like, dude, this is the shit. I love this division. It's so much fun. And so I haven't gone back since, but I will say that if we did do something like change it to 15 rounds or do the, standard capacity fit in the box thing, like 17 or whatever, I would probably bounce back and forth more, because then I'm not sacrificing the rounds so much, but I'm still getting practice on both divisions.
Yeah, I really do think the driving force for a lot of these divisions going down is round count. I mean, single stack, you're never going to get a 24 round mag in that bitch unless it's a straight up open division. You got a banana clip hanging out the bottom of your holster there. But, there's divisions like production that you can drive some life back into them with the rounds. I mean, I truly believe that is the driving force for it going down. And I also see, I guess you see it the most in the most competitive division, or the most competitive shooters, the guys who go to all the nationals, go to area matches, and like actually care competitively about the sport. I think those are the guys you see the most. I don't want to say the most complaints, but those are the guys that always say something about all the competition is too spread out. So I think that's why Carry Optics Nationals does so well, is because everybody goes. That's why the individual nationals are very good, because you get all the people go into that one nationals and they work, right? They're all shooting against each other. So a good example is like for me, which I don't know if anybody considers me competition at this point with my shitty standings, but when I go to PCC nationals this year, I'm going to shoot PCC instead of open because they're together, right? Because I want to see where I can actually go with the rifle this year. Plus, honestly, man, open is pricing me out. Like I went to go look at powder. Actually, just talked to somebody about powder. It's like $290 for an 8-pound jug. I'm out. I'm good. Like, like it's just super expensive. So that kind of
you're not a poor Tom. You're like a contractor. I thought you made that fat contractor money in Florida.
So the funny part is I'm a poor now because I decided to quit doing construction and just try to be a full-time coach. So when you switch your jobs, it's not, but hey, I'm going to tell you what, and I don't think a lot of people know this unless you've started a business before. If you put energy into two businesses, they both suffer. So you can't separate or spread yourself too thin to the point where, so one thing that bothered me about the shooting academy was I couldn't give my full attention to my videos, right? I'd make videos, I'd post like 5 or 6 videos at a time, and then I wouldn't be able to post a video for a month because I was too busy with the construction. And I'd have all this content I want to shoot. Well, Todd knows, he helps me do a lot of stuff with the insider circle and the master membership. And I'm like, dude, I need this, I need that, I need this. And it's like, Jesus, dude, I could do this myself if I wasn't fucking slinging a hammer right now. So it's just one of those things where, like I just redid the website. Todd and I went down, sat down and did a bunch of stuff on the website. So like, I'm really pushing a lot. I did 11 videos the other day because I didn't have construction jobs. So it was like, I just made 11 videos and banged them all out. Like, boom, like in one day I posted 11 videos, and I'm just like, oh, this is what it's like to do this for a living. Like to actually focus on this 100% and put all my energy into it. So it'll help. I think it's just going to make the product better. It's going to make me better as a coach, better as a, content creator, whatever. But
don't forget, you have to put up daily motivational videos on your Instagram.
I actually post a lot of, I post a video almost every day, and it's always an education video. I never talk about my scores, and I don't do that stuff anymore. When I first started, I thought I had to, but I just don't do that. Everything's educational now. But it's funny because I see a lot of motivational stuff, and I'm just like, God, that's so good. And then I'm like, nah, not gonna be that page. Like, I'm not gonna keep posting this shit. There's always some, there's always a chip on your shoulder if you want to be good. You know what I mean? Like if you can always find a negative to motivate you. So
Jody tells me the first time. Jody tells me the first time you guys started talking, you're like, social media. What is this social media stuff?
Yeah, it's so funny, dude. Now I do it every day. I still hate it. It's just part of business, but I still absolutely hate it. There's so much trash and negative shit on it. I do a good job not following any of that stuff. Like kind of with the suspension stuff, like it got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm out. Like, I'm tired of hearing it. Like I heard it, and we're not getting anywhere. All it is negative. We're not moving forward with it. We're not gaining anything out of it. It's just all, deconstructive criticism and not, I got out. So I just tapped out of it all up. So a lot of people were like, hey, did you hear about this? Like, I don't care. Move on. But with the, I'm interested in the limited division that we just, or let me go back to production real quick before, because I don't want to lose that point. So with production, what's the word on production right now? Have you guys discussed that doing a full mag capacity with the mag, or doing 15 rounds, or what have you guys discussed on with production changes in general, just that division right now?
So that particular discussion is really just starting. It was really actually very Troy and I talked about it at the World Shoot. It was actually, it was a very constructive discussion, and to, really just putting that out there for the membership to go, look, we're actually trying, we actually want to take a serious look at the production rules with regards to magazine capacity, and these are some of the options that we're considering. What do you guys think about that? I know I don't want to bore people about bylaws, but the bylaws basically say that if we want to make changes to existing equipment changes to existing divisions, we have to put it out in front of the membership, I think by September. So we're actually doing better than that by saying, hey, this is something we're actually thinking about. You guys get the whole year to kind of go, yeah, I think this makes sense. No, I don't like this. Production should be 10 rounds, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And we wouldn't even be able to vote on it until the in-person board meeting in January 2024. So in a way, I appreciate what we're doing as an organization, is actually getting these proposed changes out in front of the membership to be able to discuss for an extended period of time. But it also gives us some time to be able to do some assessment of, okay, what would actually fit in the box. Is magazine capacity that fits in the boxes that give you, roughly a rough competitive equity, because we have a box to be able to retain that, and really just try to think about how somebody might potentially game those rules out, so that when it's, finally up for a vote, the membership will have had easily a year to, let us know what they think about those proposed changes.
So talking about the box, since we're on that conversation, do we have a specific manufacturer that the only box that counts is that box, or do we have just dimensions?
There are some dimensions that are publicized, but if I remember correctly, EGW makes the official box, and there's two versions of that box. There's a box that actually has a lid that closes, and then there's just a frame where you run a straight edge on top.
So why do we have two versions of that box and not just one box?
That's a really good question. They're
because you know what that does? That's not the same box. Listen, I'm a contractor. If you make, like, I know most of this stuff's made out of metal, like I'm assuming, but guess what? Metal shrinks and moves, and not everything stays perfect. It gets dropped, unsquared, you name it. But you should have consistency in that, right? You also have the measurements aren't always perfect,
right?
Even if it's a CNC
well, the box dimensions. I mean, it's not a fixed dimension too. So even within the rule book, there's a tolerance stacking that's provided there. So it's to account for the fact of like you might be slightly off. So
I know.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Add to that, there are majors where my production Shadow 2 fit in the box, just fell right in. And there's times where somebody had to kind of like scratch the top of my front sight to like get it in there. Like,
cheater!
I was like, getting close. Like this fit in the last major match, box real easy. So and while we're on that subject, I've heard some people say keep plastic OEM mag base pads. Like, hell no, I'll quit the sport if you make it so we can't use shock bottle base pads or something.
So let's talk about. So Tyler, I'm glad you brought that up, because Todd just actually put that in the chat. Todd, you want to read that out loud real quick? About this is the equipment change proposal for production.
Yep. Option 1, increase the capacity for production division to the factory capacity with the following options being proposed. A is factory capacity with no aftermarket base pads.
Tyler just quit the sport.
Factory capacity with aftermarket base pads. Gun must still fill in box. Existing rule for size, but increased capacity. C, 15 rounds maximum. And D, no change. I'm a fan of B, but I don't. That was my vote of 1 of 35,000.
So we have a group chat with a bunch of guys that we shoot with in South Carolina, and one of the conversations that happened in that group chat, which I thought was very interesting, was not every gun is going to have the same mag capacity. So a great example is like the Canic. For me, I can get 23 rounds easily in my magazines. Not like jam them in there, but I can get them, like I don't have room for another round. This is the way that I have the gun set up, but I can easily get it where it consistently works and I don't have any problems. But there's other people that if they set that same set their gun up, they're going to get 22 and they cannot get 23 to work. Right now, again, that happens to be works for me. But if you set it up with production where the production magazine, like Canic sells a 20 round magazine production. Canic also has an 18 round magazine production. There are other guns out there that are production guns that come straight from the factory that you can't get a 17 round mags in. They're only 17 rounds. So at some point, where do you as an organization go, hey, listen, that's an advantage? Because even though some people, well, you have to, like, levels of shooters are going to know one round is a huge advantage sometimes. If you give me a 24 round stage and I can get 25 rounds in my mag or my gun, guess what? I got a makeup shot. Nobody else does. They're going to have to do a reload at 23 or 24, and then they can't make that makeup shot. So again, it's just like those little things, but when does that become a competitive equity issue? So if you don't do a capacity on the round count, if you don't say 15 rounds, then it becomes an arms race to where everybody shoots the same gun because they can get 18 or 20 rounds versus a 17 round mag.
And it's a legitimate question, right? So, I mean, I'm assuming with your Canic, you can fit 23 rounds and it still fits the box.
Oh, hell yeah.
That with base
Dude, that thing's awesome. No, that is for carry optics is what I was discussing, right? But I meant for production, if you get, because obviously it has to fit the box, but for production, you're going to get you can get a 18 round magazine from Canic, right? But there's other guns that can't get any more than a 17 and still fit the box. Even though
P10F can get 19 in there. And then I'm not sure if you threw a grams in there, if you can get 20, you know, and then that's kind of a huge advantage over. So maybe instead of 15, make it 17 or something. So it's like, that's pretty standard for most full size guns, but
yeah, but then you go back to counting, right? Well, I mean, anybody who says, like, I mean, really, there's only two divisions that are factory limited to capacity, right? Single stack and revolver. You know, if you take a look at open, right? Open, there's a variation. You can get anywhere between 20 to 30 rounds, depending on how far you want to push it in a magazine. Limited major, you're somewhere between 19 and 22 rounds, right? There's a round variation there too. You know, even with the carry optics, right? Initially it was 23 reloadable. You know, there's those Rune Tactical base followers out there right now where you're like, oh, now I can do 24 reloadable.
I just got those. Haven't tried them yet, so I haven't done any talking about it yet. But
those are 23 reloadable, 24 max, by the way.
Right, 24 max. But again, you know, you're basically taking something that is a set standard at 140 millimeter, and someone goes, oh, well, I can make this work with more, right? I mean, you know, Luigi used to run 25 in his Walther. I mean, he had to shoot major for his first couple rounds to get the slide to cycle, but you know, he could work, he could make it work within those rules, right? So, you know, anytime you have that question about, well, there's competitive equity, it's like, okay, well, we gave you a list of rules to function within, right? If somebody happens to build a better mousetrap, then okay. Yeah, does it allow you to have a better makeup shot? Sure. Now, can somebody still win if they shoot better and they don't need those makeup shots? Also true, right?
Sure.
Some of that, it depends on the stages that you run into. It depends on the designs that are out there. You know, just when anybody talks about 15, right? Realistically, at the 30 stages I shot at the World Shoot, 15 rounds just meant I had more makeup shots. That's really all it meant.
That's it allows you to shoot. That's why I like the rounds. It's not that you should shoot them. You should shoot what you're supposed to shoot, but it's nice when you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Shit, I gotta go make an extra reload. Right. So
and that's still possible.
Like, that's what opens it up. Yeah.
No, that's still possible. I mean, in a 32 round count stage, there was a 32 round count stage where you're going, I have to do 2 reloads because otherwise I'm doing 16 and 16. Wait, I'm doing an extra reload somewhere because you just don't know. So the argument about competitive equity and round count, it's like that round count difference exists on virtually every division.
Right.
Some people are just able
what I mean by that is I guess technically at the end of the day, it's all an equipment race. But what his complaint I don't want to say it was a complaint, but his concern was that it becomes an equipment race. So like production's a good example. Production should be, I buy it, I shoot it. I don't put a trigger in it. I don't, and I'm not a purist, so don't get me wrong. I'm all about putting a nice trigger in it and making some changes, getting a grip that actually doesn't
This
slip
is just
like
some people's arguments.
right. So yeah, right, exactly. Because I don't like personally, I kind of like the way it went where you could put a trigger in. And if I'm not a big fan of thumb rest, but dude, if you think that's going to make you a better shooter, rock and roll, bro. Put your thumb rest on there. I also like that we allow manufacturers, guys, we need sponsors. So bringing manufacturers into this sport, allowing them to make parts for people to try and using their gun brings money to the sport. The problem is we don't do good enough bringing that money to the sport. It just goes in their pocket and we don't get any of it back. Right? Does that make sense? Like we're not bringing them in as sponsors. Like we have the same sponsors at every nationals. We need more sponsors that we need to bring those people in. So if we opening up those kind of those rules, it's not because we're allowing manufacturers to make those decisions, I'm assuming, but we need to bring those manufacturers in. Hey, listen, we're help sell your product. Come help us. Right? Let's do a give and take. I don't, maybe you guys reach out. I don't know how. I just don't feel like we reach out enough to sponsors. Like we have the same sponsors at every match. Why can't we find these guys? Like Lock Grips is a great example, dude. Everybody I know that shoots a shadow has those. How the hell are those people not at nationals selling grips? I don't understand why we don't reach out to companies like that and say, hey, listen, we really want you guys to come out, whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just feel like we need to push more to those sponsors and bring them in. So I don't know. I'm big about sponsorship, dude. For a guy who's not sponsored, I'm big about sponsorship. I think you should take care of sponsors. The few that we have in this sport that are dedicated are just awesome. Like, and they really keep this sport, promoted. I just don't feel like we promote them enough back. So that's just whatever. Anyways, I'll get off my sponsorship rant. So the limited optics conversation. What spurred that conversation? Like, is that the manufacturers? Are the manufacturers putting enough, like bug in your ear in USPSA's ear to say, hey, listen, we need to really look at this? Are the shooters sending emails constantly to their area directors? Where is this conversation coming from? Like internet? Is it social media? Just listening to people on social media all the time, or?
So when the topic of limited optics was first brought up, I think at that point the perception was that, and probably accurate, is that you had a certain set of manufacturers that were sort of asking for that. And at the same time, the board at the time wasn't really getting a response from the membership saying like, hey, we really would like for this to be a thing. That didn't necessarily have a vested financial interest. Now you get to the point where Springfield comes out with a Prodigy. You're starting to see that it's not just this flash in the pan. Nighthawk's coming out with a high capacity 2011 that has cuts for optics on it, and you basically get to the point where there's a significant enough critical mass, and you're actually getting enough of a request from the membership. The big challenge that we have within USPSA right now is that when it comes to any sort of innovative design that doesn't fit in a box, there's no way for us to be able to evaluate the viability of innovation without either saying, hey, you're going to go into open, which, look, for all intents and purposes, yeah, you can do whatever you want in open, but the reality is open is a 2011 with a comp, a frame mounted optic that shoots 9 major or 38 super comp. Like that's really what open division is, right? There's no way for us to be able to subdivide that and say, okay, some guy came out with a 40-watt pulse laser that shoots, whatever, right? It just says open, right? So putting something in open, it doesn't really help us evaluate whether that's viable. And the other thing is, so really the only way that we could evaluate limited optics as viable as a division, or whether it needs to be potentially rolled into a carry optics or any sort of decision, the only real way to do that is as a provisional division. So the point about a provisional division is that, while yes, in the past we basically make a provisional division and it basically happens, right? It's not necessarily clear what the the metric is by which we're evaluating participation in the sport, if it pulls away, all these questions about, we're trying to get more members, blah, 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 whatever, that literally is not like any part of the primary decision making. There's a recognition that slide mounted optics on limited gun are becoming a thing, and in order for us to be able to evaluate that and see, hey, is this viable as a division by itself? Is this something that the participation shows that it really should be part of carry optics? There are a number of possibilities at the end of the assessment period, and that's all spelled out in the bylaws, right? We have to evaluate for a minimum of 12 months, and that 12-month period is going to be evaluated by activity at the club matches, right? I mean, if we see that 20% of activity is into limited optics, okay, like this might be a thing. And let's say that sustains and we get 25% participation in the second year, then clearly there's a demand for that. And the demand is not necessarily about nationals or diluting the talent pool. If you go back to what you brought up a couple times, Tom, it's at the clubs, right? I mean, if you get 10 more people shooting your match and they're like, because I can shoot this limited optics gun right now, then okay, if that's mirrored across, the rest of the organization across the country, a membership increase is a nice to have, but it's not necessarily a primary decision metric. At the end of the day, we can only evaluate this technology by creating a provisional division, and it's the quickest way for us to be able to do so. Because if we were to evaluate it in any other existing division, you would be waiting over a year, because we would have to figure out like the rules and do this and whatever. At least as a provisional division, that's something per the bylaws that we can implement much quicker. And there's a defined analysis on how a provisional division would be measured. If we tried to roll it into carry optics, you'd be waiting a year minimum.
So
go ahead, Tyler.
If you guys decide to make that division provisional, how soon will that be like available? Like, we talking like a month or two, or are we talking a little while?
So that was I had a discussion with Ken Nelson about that. So we want to try to give him a little bit of time to just a little bit of heads up to actually be able to create that back end. So they would be able to kind of push that out on the next updated practice score. At the same time, when I spoke with Ken, you can actually do that manually. There's a couple other things that we need to go through in terms, and that's leading up. So this is all the prep work that would have to happen if we were to actually approve this, right? So, there's no way for us to separate classifiers, right? So if somebody wanted to show up and shoot limited optics, it's like, okay, you're not going to get a classification. You're probably not going to get a classification, but you will have a classification.
That was my next
score,
question,
right?
is like, are you going to like use limited scores in the meantime, or it just won't count for this provisional period?
I had that discussion with Jake, and I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but if it became a permanent division, then at some point, yeah, you would have that classification. But in the interim, it's like, okay, well, we're collecting scores. And look, I get it. We are, we're going to try to do the best job we can in coming up with realistic, hit factors, but at the same time, understanding, it's a little bit of, it's going to be a little bit of a guess. Right.
Well, you'll get a lot of paper GMs if you do something wrong, right?
So, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Tyler, because that's exactly where I was going with this. The biggest mistake when it came to provisional divisions, which I've only been here for 2 of them. I happened to come in right when PCC, I think I was here 2 years after PCC. Like, that's when I started shooting PCC. I think I'd been here around 2 years. That's when it started. Like, it was 2 years before I got here. And then I started and I was like, oh, the classifications, I was coming to the end of the open classifiers being how they scored it. Like, they had started to get almost enough that they were no longer using open classifiers as the scoring for PCC classification wise. That was the biggest mistake ever when it came to PCC shooters. I met guys that I was like, bro, that guy's a C class at best. And he was a grandmaster, and it destroyed the rest of his shooting. And I actually saw people quit when they tried to get out of PCC because they were getting their heads kicked in because they were grandmaster or master in pistol and they're not even a B shooter. So it was like, that was the worst thing about the provisional for PCC. But I don't think if you were to give carry optics and limited optics, I don't think you would see a difference in those those classifiers because it's literally a trigger. That's the difference. Dropping
Unless
a
you do
safety.
major minor.
Well, but you wouldn't have major minor because it's all going to be minor. That's
Well,
what
that's
I'm
just
assuming, right?
That's just what's proposed right now.
I would
Proposed doesn't-
assume. I would assume if you're bringing in the limited optics again, I'm going to make this clear. I don't give a shit. Okay, just don't screw up carry optics. Don't change my round counts. The thing's awesome. I don't care if you bring
There's a
limited
reason
optics.
it's so perfect and
Right.
popular.
I don't care
It's
about
the most
limited
popular
optics.
division.
Yeah, I don't even care if limited optics is in carry optics. What I don't want is if you're going to put limited optics guns are coming in with magwells. Fine. You want to put a magwell? Everybody gets a magwell. Don't just give me this one division gets it because it's, again, whatever. It's just that when you sit here and you look at these divisions, the guns really don't matter. The guns don't matter, right? I mean, listen, you have to look at the shooter is the key, right? Knowing how to shoot is the answer, not the gun. Guns are awesome. That you have to be comfortable with the gun, but literally a 2011, I've shot both. I like mechanic better. That's just me personally. That's just because what I shoot better. I just more comfortable with it. But again, it's if you're going to do that classification system, it should be carry optics, period. Right? In my opinion, I just think you should carry it over
So if
to.
that
It doesn't
work
have to
out,
be
it's your
joined
fault.
together. No, and listen, I don't care if they make a separate division. It doesn't bother me either. Like either one works for me, right? But they should have a place to play. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. The more that I coach is the more that I pay attention to who shoots what. And I've been seeing a shit ton of 2011s with dots, a shit ton, like to the point where I'm like, wow, interesting. Like you have no chance at winning because you're shooting an open and they're shooting 9 minor, right? Now, that being said, they just like that gun. I don't think they give a shit per se about winning high overall, right? I don't think that's not their goal. They just like to shoot that gun. They just enjoy that division. They enjoy that 2011. I mean, they're specifically spending money on that gun. They didn't just go, hey, listen, I'm going to make this open gun. No, they bought that gun as a carry optics gun, right? Or as a 2011 with a dot on the slide. So they bought it specifically for that, knowing they can't shoot in any division in USPSA and have a chance to win. So now you're giving them an opportunity. What's wrong with giving people an opportunity to shoot a division or shooting what they want to shoot? That being said, I have a question for you, especially since you represent USPSA. Do you feel like new divisions bring new shooters? And before you answer that, do you feel like new divisions hurt our sport? Dude, I'm putting it on you now, baby. Let's go.
Oh shoot! I mean, answering that question really is more of a gut feeling more than anything else, right? So without having that data in front of us, you know, people thought that carry optics was going to destroy every division. You know, yes, it had a negative impact on production. It also had a negative impact on limited, believe it or not. PCC was not this great beast that, you know, destroyed every division. Right. But we, you know,
well, hold on.
New members.
I want to ask you this, because that's a great point that you brought up. I feel, and I'd be interested to how you feel before we move on with this subject. Do you feel like the reason why production has fallen off is because it didn't grow like carry optics did? So the problem, in my opinion, with some of these divisions is they're not growing with the times. So like, let's just say carry optics, it grew with technology. It grew with what people wanted. They wanted the rounds. They wanted the red dot. It's not the red dot per se that brings people, in my opinion. Obviously it's fun and everybody likes it, but it is another expense that you don't have to have if you give somebody more rounds.
You know, it was, I mean, really, when they made the change from 10 rounds to 140 millimeter mags, I think that's really when you started to see the shift over. Right. I mean, Tyler and I, you know, I started production. That's all I wanted to shoot.
I remember.
I basically just, you know, I decided to shoot carry optics. I happened to have a Gen 1 M&P back in my TAC Tibby days that was milled for an RMR. And I'm like, oh, look, I could put an SRO. I guess I can shoot carry optics now. And it's, you know, it's really fun. It's something that's a relatively easy barrier to entry, you know, and you can think about different things. Right. But divisions and bringing membership, that wasn't something that was discussed at, you know, the board meetings where we're like, oh, hey, we think this could bring in, you know, 5,000-6,000 members. You know, I think divisions are really not what necessarily bring somebody into the sport. I think what brings people into the sport is their awareness, right? I mean, if we could go around the room here and we go, hey Tom, how did you find out about USPSA? How did Todd find out about USPSA? How did Tyler find out at USPSA? We didn't know. I don't think any of us joined USPSA going like, oh dude, because I want to shoot, open or PCC or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We figured it out as we got in.
Right. I think that's for all of
Yeah.
us. I mean, my first match, I showed up with a Glock 19 that I shot in limited because at the time, I had a Vickers mag release and a Vickers slide stop, and that made it limited. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm shooting limited. And then you figured it out afterwards. So this idea that, we look at divisions as a way to bring in more membership, that it's really more about being able to evaluate the viability of a technology. And at the end of the day, we can only do that through a provisional division fairly nimbly, right? We try to do it anywhere else. We're restricted by the bylaws, and rightfully so, to be able to ensure that members aren't having to deal with equipment changes, last minute before nationals. Now, if it ends up bringing in more members, okay, great, but that's not a metric that we would necessarily look at. Membership numbers could be any number of things. It could be driven by inflation, cost of gas, a bunch of other factors that we just don't, that go far beyond just, oh, we made a new division, now everybody's going to show up. Like it's a straw man argument to a certain extent. I mean, I'm not providing limited we weren't talking about limited optics to try to put more members. We're putting limited optics out there to evaluate, hey, does this have a place? And the options at the end could be any number of things. Could be, yeah, it is a provisional division. It could be, no, there's really not a difference. We see the numbers from the classifier scores and go, okay, the way that carry optics and limited optics runs, they're basically one and the same. It could create something where, okay, now I've got an upper limit and a lower limit, right? So limited optics is do everything you want except for putting on, a comp, and then carry optics becomes more of a production gun. Now I've got some actual divisions, production with the dot, limited with the dot. Again, these are all options. They're all possibilities. But the only way for us to be able to evaluate that is to actually do it. And memberships and everything else like that, that's not as significant consideration as people believe.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear, because I think that clears up some of the the USPSA internet warrior bullshit, that's why I brought you on, man, because I want these answers, because this is kind of what I figured was the answer, like this stuff like this, because it's not I don't think there's this big secretive group in the background like let's just do this, baby, and jack up some shit. I think there's so many complex conversations with divisions that are, there's so many different ways of doing it. I have read since this came out probably 25 different ways of redoing all the divisions, and I'm like, dude, is our shit really that broken? Like, do we we really that broken right now that we have to completely change everything? It's interesting. It's an interesting thing. Todd, you were going to say something. I'm sorry, man.
I don't remember what, but I think overall you'll see a little bit of decline in carry optics and people and limited in general, and people moving into limited optics, because I'm seeing a lot of guys in our local area that are moving straight from limited because they like their 2011 guns into open. Now they could take their $3,000 to $5,000 gun, get it milled for a couple hundred, and go shoot a division with it instead of spending $3,000 more on a open gun. Because it's a definite shift that I think we're going to see, and I like it.
I mean, it does raise a really important philosophical question, though, right? I mean, is the sport essentially moving towards a dot world and a dot efficiency world? If we look back historically, back at the early 2000s, that's basically what USPSA was kind of turning into, because it was just limited and open. And IDPA, Bill Wilson at the time recognized that there was a place for a production gun. The guys that were in charge of USPSA at the time basically said, yeah, we don't, we're all about racing. And then IDPA gets created, they come up with production, it becomes a huge hit. And then USPSA at that point has to acknowledge, like, okay, there is a place for something other than race, a race gun, right?
Good save,
I-
good save, good save. Coming from an Asian guy. Good save,
Thanks,
bro. Woo.
thanks.
Hey, you're in California. You can't make a mistake. You better clean it up. That's an edit.
Yeah. So, but I mean,
Swats
if you
on their
look at
way.
if you look at I mean, if you look at irons right now, yes. I mean, is there a place for irons? Is there a place that it currently exists? That's a cultural question that I don't know that we can necessarily save irons from the march of history just because.
I don't think you'll save them, but I think you will make it more competitive by getting more round counts in there, regardless of
Right.
what way it goes. I think.
But a lot of people
People
I've
will
talked to
shoot it more.
disagree.
Huh?
But I've heard both sides of arguments from like different grandmaster shooters that they think that it'll actually like make production shittier by adding more rounds. I personally like more bullets now, but I've heard the argument both ways. I kind of like
But-
Yeeman's point that he said about like production and production optics and limited optics. I feel like that would at least add some variance in the, you know, but I also don't want to dick with carry optics because it's such a great division. But I would also just transfer to limited optics eventually if that was the case, you know, like if I wanted to shoot 24 rounds and then, you know, but that's why we do the provision so we can see how it works. And then if I think people from what I've talked to is they're concerned that every time a rule has ever been made, it's never been undone. So they're worried about if you add this division, it's not going to be a provision. It's just it is what it is now, and it'll never change. So I think it was good that you mentioned like, hey, in a year, let's reevaluate and let's actually do that and see, do we need to add this into carry optics? Does it need to be a different division? Do we need to change other divisions accordingly to add some like differences between the divisions? So it's not just carry optics and then carry optics with a magwell and single action. Like it's way too close, I think, for them to be different divisions. But
And that was a follow-up. That was a follow-up that I wanted to add to what you were saying earlier, Yemin, was exactly what Tyler said. That is one thing USPSA should 1,000,000% think about being transparent about, is having a set of this is what dictates we're keeping or not keeping, period. Whether it's a vote from the members, we have this percentage of participation, like, okay, we've had 50% of people have transferred into limited optics, or now we're seeing carry optics type of growth. Like obviously carry optics has grown into this out of what, 3 years? I think it's 3 to 4 years it's been around now.
5, I think.
So
carry optics
5
started,
years.
Like, 2015, 2016. So it's been almost 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's taken 7 years for it to be the dominant, right? So really in the last 2 years, it's really taken over, right?
Yeah.
Really taken over. So do you have limited optics for 4 years before you go, hey, this is it? But what I'm saying is we need there should be some type of, this is how it's going to go, right? Like, even if you guys come up with something just loosely and go, hey, this is what we want to do, vote on it, see if you like it. Again, you can just tell people to pound sand and not listen to anything they say, but at least you make them feel like you're listening. Does that make sense? Because there's people that want to do shit that I'm just like, holy crap, we don't even have USPSA anymore if you want to do this. Like, it's not even close to USPSA. It's an IPSC match or whatever it is. So it's like, if you start like sitting down and like just giving people kind of a guideline on how things are done in that aspect, I think you'd see a different attitude from a lot of shooters right now. Again, I think you have just a handful of people that complain regardless, which that's every sport, everything that we do in life. But it'd be nice to kind of have that. Okay, cool. Like, we know it's been a year. They're going to have a survey of like, this is the percentage of people that shot it. This is how many people that did classifiers with it. It's close to the US to carry optics. So look, it's not the gun, it's the shooter. I think if you saw the classifications, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, okay, limited optics, cool. It's just another gun division, right? They wouldn't go, oh, it's because the 2011 is so much better. I think you'd see it's bullshit. It's a great gun, great division, great system, but it's not, that doesn't make the shooter.
Right. I mean, there's been discussion that's already taken place in terms of, how we would analyze Activity participation, that's something that we should be able to put up on, like, say, a monthly basis. Hey, this is month one of provisional division, and this is what we're seeing. And again, it's about activity across all of USPSA, right?
Right.
So, if you see a particular type of growth curve, and you're not seeing this significant drag away from other divisions, then okay, there's a certain assessment that you can make from that.
Right.
And again, realistically, are we going to find out enough data in 12 months? Probably not.
No.
I mean,
7 years, dude. 6 years has been for Carry Optics to be the dominant division, right?
Minimum 2 years. I mean, I think that's pretty
Yeah.
much what IPSC did. IPSC was basically evaluating production optics and production optics light for what, 2-3 years. They still included it in the World Shoot because at some point you had the data there, but they again, provisional does not necessarily mean permanent. I get that's the way it's been done in the past, but that is not, that is not the direction, and that is not the input, the input that was given of like, okay, we're going to make this and it's going to be permanent. There is something, we are there. There is, if it's approved, then yes, this will be how we analyze the activity. This is how we're going to assess it. And it's going to be provided on a fairly regular basis to membership, so they can see like, okay, yeah, is at the end of the day, it's an option, right? It's been asked for, got to evaluate, asking the membership and people that are interested to go out there and prove that, this is something that was wanted.
So can you give me a guesstimate on how many people asked? Like, I want exact numbers too. If you mess up, you're getting, I'm not voting for you again. So can you give me a guesstimate on what you think? Is it 30, 40% of members, 50% that have asked for this division? Like, is there any kind of hard data that you guys have on that? Like, did you do a survey, or is it just coming out of area directors, that kind of stuff? Or how are you getting the information to say, hey, this is what we obviously, all right. And I'm going to ask this question because this can get kind of nasty and sensitive sometimes with people, but have manufacturers come to you guys and say, hey, listen, we really like to make this gun. Like, obviously as USPSA, we deal with a lot of manufacturers in the sport. Like SIG's a big contributor. There's a lot of people that, like Staccato, which used to be STI, used to be a big part of our sport. Now they're now that their 2011 things coming back around with the dot, they're kind of wanting to jump back into USPSA a little bit. Are these manufacturers coming to you as well as the members, or is it heavily more the manufacturer? Is it more the members? What is it? What do you think? I mean, so kind of where is it?
That discussion is really a bit more qualitative, right? It's like sidebar discussions. You'll have a member that asks, it's not like it's not like we have a really fleshed out marketing media department that goes, okay, we receive X number of questions. We are working towards that so that we can provide better data. There's definitely not a quid pro quo that I'm aware of where, somebody goes, hey, if you make this a division, here's $50,000 for USPS or anything like that. Yeah. There's definitely, oh my God. Yeah. I wish. No, there's no quid pro quo. It's really more business development type discussions where you go, hey, we hear this might be a thing. We'd like to talk about, the possibilities of, where this fits and how we can support, so on and so forth. They're all just very vague discussions at this point. Nothing, again, no quid pro quo. You'll have area directors that'll, comment that, hey, they're actually getting significantly more requests from members that they didn't see beforehand. So that's all kind of a holistic take on, is this something that needs to be evaluated? Like I said, I mean, ultimately all these proposals and changes that are being put out there, it was intended to be put out there with sufficient time. Yeah, that was something that was definitely very heavily discussed. Hey, we need to make sure that the members have enough time to be able to provide their feedback. Rick, our IT director, did a great job in creating a single email point of contact, board@uspsa.org. So whatever you fill out on the survey, if there's some additional information you want to provide, we've been getting a lot of emails from across the board on, how they feel about the subject in a way that a survey can't capture. And, we're tracking that. So at the end of the day, it's about promoting a discussion of the, the direction that we're thinking about taking the sport and getting that member input and adding that to how we evaluate the decision making process. So it's a healthy discussion. At the end of the day, it's really about the philosophy of, hey, why are we, what is the point of production? At the end of the day, that is a significant philosophical discussion. But it's
one
not
of the
a
big things I hear is if we add all these bullets to production, it will no longer be a low cap category. So then, like, what would be like, I guess, thought or argument to that? Like, which I like bullets. So let me rephrase that. I will shoot production if I can put all the bullets in the mag, but I know a lot of people are against it because of low cap things.
Well, that's philosophically, right? Like, when was production first implemented into USPSA?
Where's
Like
Todd
late.
at? That's our guy. He always
Get
has
the
those
link,
answers. So for anybody who doesn't know, when Todd isn't disappearing, he's eating right now. I knew it. So what happens is Todd goes on here and we get these chats with the
He's
link.
our Jamie.
And he bangs it. Yeah, he's our Jamie from the. All right, Todd, hit it up.
So-
Google it. He's getting it right.
So
now, look at
so
him.
his,
Types like a madman.
so historically, production started roughly 99 2000. So at the time that production was first created, what did we have in the United States? There was still a federal assault weapons ban, magazine capacity ban, right? So production at the time did in fact reflect what a factory gun was at the time. A firearm that generally came with 10-round magazines. Now, culturally, that's developed into a low capacity division. But again, it's been 22, 23. We're going on 23 years right now, right? So fundamentally, philosophically, what is a production gun now? I mean, you can look at Tom
different.
Castro, right? A production gun, a Canic Rival SFX steel frame gun for $600. $600, and what we considered factory as sort of a bare bones type firearm now is a semi-custom firearm. You can get a semi-custom firearm for $700.
$600, 2 mags. It even comes with a damn holster.
Right. And that's the kind of thing that I don't think anybody could have foreseen that as being production. And it's something that, and to a certain extent you're wrestling with, right? Is production more about low capacity? Is production supposed to be more about, what I can buy from a dealer and still show up a match and shoot that as is? Tom,
sometimes times change. Yeah, it is what it is.
You could probably take a Canic and hand that to any Billy Bob off the street, and they could probably be pretty decent with it, right?
Class right off the bat.
I think that this is kind of what I talked about a little bit earlier, is that the divisions haven't grown with the other divisions. Like, each division isn't growing. It's just one division just explodes because it's the one that grew. So like right now,
or it's the new hot thing, right? It's the new hot thing.
I don't disagree with the new hot thing, but if you look at why people shoot carry optics, it's not just the dot. I mean, a lot of people love the dot, but there's a lot of people that pick that dot up and go, this sucks. Like, I can't find it. I'm not, they don't realize that it's them. It's not the dot's fault, but they pick it up because they're like, oh, 24 rounds. I get to go faster. Well, if you have 15 rounds in production, guess what? You get to go faster because you're not counting rounds. You're not worried about missing that popper. You have an extra round to make up the shot. That's what slows most people down, because you have an array of 10. You're effed if you mess up. So now if you give somebody 15, they can be more aggressive, right? If you used to give somebody 10 rounds, they got to be a lot more conservative. It's like a single stack shooter. If you've ever watched somebody who shoots single stack, who isn't Rob Latham or Tim Herron, you have to be a little more careful there. You're not going to shoot a mini popper fast. You're going to make sure it stops, lands, soft, nice trigger pull. You give them an extra 5 rounds. Those dudes are going to rip that single stack gun even more than they already do. So again, it's the divisions have grown, but some of them haven't, right? Like, single stack will never grow out of what it is because of the mag capacity, period. I mean, unless we change that. But production hasn't grown with the mag capacity that's changed in the world. When you can buy a Canic for 18 round mag, and it comes as a production gun, I think that's another issue with what's the definition of production? right? I mean, just the word alone, production, should mean from the factory. It's a production gun. They've made the same gun, 10 million of them, right? One of them is not more custom than the other. They're all the same production gun. So if you have that as the name of the division, it should be whatever that gun can be sold at. If you can now, I hate the argument of 10 rounds because in New York, you can't have more than 10 rounds. That's bullshit. There's guys that shoot open in New York with only 10 rounds because that's the law, but somehow we still have an open division with 30 rounds in it. Right. I mean, if that was the case, no other gun could have more. I know guys that shoot PCC in Jersey and New York that have to shoot 10 round magazines and do nothing but reload the whole time with a rifle. But guess what? We don't change the divisions for that. That's what that was like the dumbest ass argument I've ever heard in my life when somebody's like, oh, it's because of the 10 round rule in what? You got to follow the rules of each state, but you still have more rounds everywhere else in those same guns.
Have that issue.
Right. But regardless what the state law is, you just follow the state laws, right? That's fine. But you don't change a division just because of a few states. So it's like if you're at this point, production wise, and I know there's some guys, like, I guess this is kind of where I kind of agree with some of the old school guys where they're like, the gun should be production. I have no issues with the gun has to come out of the box and stay that way. I don't think that's bad. That's why it's called production. The whole point is to give someone where to land. Right. And that's what production used to be. But then now being in the sport for 4 years, I'm like, holy shit, production was like outrageous to get into. Like I needed 7 mags, right? I needed a lot more rounds to go there. So it was like a lot more. I put a lot more money into production than I ever did into carry optics. Shit. Yeah. I mean, it was way cheaper to get into carry optics, but I mean, that's also because the Canic, you know, I mean, when I started in production, I was rocking a Shadow 2, an SPO1 first, and then a Shadow 2. So it just got to the point where it's not the cheapest division, right? It could be now, but it just depends on what, you know, people want to say. Like, I don't know. I guess you could get into production and go, oh, well, you can't have, you know, aftermarket base pads because it's not production, right? Then you can get into that. So it's going to be impossible to make everybody happy. It's just, that's kind of why I like having these conversations here and there. Cause I don't really care. But I just, in my opinion, I see those are the things that kind of keep people from going to those divisions is round count. They don't get to shoot comfortably. They have to count, you know, it becomes more of you're just working your brain more than just shooting.
But some people like that.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I honestly really loved the reloading part or the stage planning of production. I really enjoyed that. Shooting it was different. Like once I could shoot 24 rounds and just focus on shooting. That's why I like PCC so much. Cause I focused on just ripping, right? Being able to focus on shooting and moving and all that stuff. Go ahead, Tyler.
Here's my big argument though. So times have changed. It's been 20 years. Go with the times. If you want to stick with 10 rounds or whatever, go to limited 10 or single stack. And I've had people tell me that they would just do that. Like if, you know, because, you know, if you really want that challenge, well, the challenge will not go anywhere. It's just that division will no longer have that exact challenge you're looking for.
I mean, how does USPSA feel about having so many divisions? Because I don't know, maybe it's just me. I don't think we have a lot of divisions, but maybe that's just because I don't shoot everything. I shoot a lot. I probably shoot more than most. But does USPSA in general feel like we're every time we add something, we need to eliminate something, or is that just coming from the few?
That as far as I know, with the discussions we've had, that's never been brought up.
Okay, that's what I was.
There is a question. There is a question about balancing that, but at the end of the day, let's see: open, limited, carry optics, production, single stack revolver, and
PCC
and PCC.
Yeah. So there's 8 divisions. So if you put in limited optics, that's 9 divisions, right? So if that let's just say that's the provisional is 9, even if it's there provisionally, it's 9. So it's 9 divisions. So at what point does something step on something else? It doesn't, correct? Like, I mean, in other words, they all have their own specific things, correct?
Yeah, they're all specific in their own way.
So at what point do we eliminate major and limited? in general, like completely? Like, is that conversation ever had? Like, is minor versus major conversation ever had, especially since 40 has become basically obsolete in the outside world other than what we do? I mean, obviously there's 40 guns, but
well, that conversation about major minor power factor, yeah, that's not just within USPSA, that's also within, IPSC as well.
right.
So you talk about 40 major, it's a lot harder for people to reload 40 overseas, and they're having to buy factory, and you're talking what, like a dollar around. So even with the international community, you're starting to see them shift towards 9. Now the question is okay, well, do we, I don't think that would not be a very quick process at all.
No.
Do you again, okay, well, let's say it's a single scoring system, right? Single power factor.
Everything major. Even if it's 9mm 125. Let's go. That's my change. I want all high capacity. I want high capacity. I want no rules. Let's go.
All the points.
Well, then, I saw Rob Latham kind of talk about the reason why power factor is 125, for a certain type of round. And, it's important to kind of know that kind of history. So you kind of know why. So when people go, well, production's always been 10 rounds. Okay, well, why was it 10 rounds to begin with? Yeah, because that was the political environment at the time.
Right.
Does that mean that it should still be that case?
Right.
Again, the answer isn't necessarily yes or no, but it's worth understanding where we come from, so we know, like, okay, Todd here posted that it was mostly for stock guns. Well, what exactly is a stock gun in 2023? I mean, if somebody
Canik is not a stock gun, bro. I'm telling you, like, that gun is that gun is perfect out of the box.
but it's a factory gun.
Yep,
that is
right.
stock from the factory.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And if that gun first came out when they thought about production, they would have been like, no, that's not a production gun.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is.
Open.
Right.
You actually have to,
limited.
if I'm correct, I think you have to modify the gun to be worse in IPSC. Like, I don't think that gun is IPSC legal to trigger. I don't think there's enough tension on the trigger.
3 pounds.
Yeah.
3
so
pounds.
is it? Yeah, I can't remember. Is it enough? I don't know if it makes
striker fire standard is 3 pounds, and
Okay,
it's
so it might
also
make
something. Yeah, but it's something that's acknowledged as well.
Right.
Striker fire, it's far more restrictive with a striker fire gun than you can with a steel frame double action gun.
Right. Which is racist in itself. I'm just saying, that's just fucking bullshit. I'm just saying.
It's divisionist.
Fucking striker haters. All right, brother. I appreciate you coming on. I guess my last question for you, and actually I will open it up to these two guys. I want to make sure that if they have any specific questions that they want to ask you. I'll start with Tyler. Go ahead, bro. You have any questions for Yemin specifically that maybe I didn't ask?
I'm sorry, you cut out. Did you say me or Todd?
No, Tyler. Go ahead. I was wondering if you had any questions for Yemin that I didn't ask.
So let me go over my notes really quick. So, all right, 2 things, right? So, some of the arguments I've heard about, like adding capacity to production, like either to 15 or whatever, or to 17 or whatever, is people like, oh, well, what if people cheat? I'm like, I guess my thought on that to people that think that is, why can't anybody just cheat with 10 rounds and throw 12 in there now? So it just really comes down to the integrity of the shooter. And if you want to be a cheater, then hopefully you get caught and DQ'd and banned. So screw you. And hopefully if it does become 15 and not like standard capacity, then, just have some integrity and shoot like how you're supposed to. And then the other thought was, and you guys have probably talked about it, Yemin, but if we did change the capacity on production, then is there like and this credit goes out to Aaron English. He wanted me to throw his name out there.
Oh my
God. Do you have any thoughts?
That is getting edited out for sure.
Do we have any thoughts on what the hit factors will be changed to? Like just a 2% or like bump, and like, because clearly if we change the capacity to higher in production, we're going to get a lot of paper GMs unless we do something about all the hit factors on classifiers immediately.
Dude, good point. I never thought about that. That does change a lot.
So,
So for
there's at least a thought.
for your first point about capacity, it's pretty complex. I mean, I was talking with the Australian region director who's been around. I mean, he was around when Mike Voigt was around, and so he was a really good source of history about the discussion. And even for him, you know, the decision to go to 15 rounds was something that was pretty arbitrary, right? So it's not like 15 rounds was picked because it made the most sense. 15 rounds was kind of picked because that was like the best compromise at the time to avoid.
It's a sweet number. Just saying, sweet number for production, not for carry optics. I'm just saying.
It might have happened to work out that way, but you know, and then I'm talking with Jared Fox about 15 rounds, and it is honestly at the end of the day, the international ROs were like, dude, we can't count to 15 any more than you can count to 10, right? I mean,
that's what I heard. It was like not really enforced per se.
Well,
and
so but the thing of it is it is, the reality is that most of us that were, I mean, look, you and I were in production, right? Like you instinctually just counted, right?
Yeah.
And after having worked matches, I mean, even for me, there was moments where I'm going, wait, was that 11 or 12?
Dude, you're Asian. You're supposed to be the math dude. If you can't do it, we're all screwed, bro.
I am so not a math Asian. Right? If I was a math Asian, I'd be doing something different.
That's
but
awesome.
Again, it is. There is a little bit of the honor system, and for the most part, we very rarely see somebody intentionally, breaking the rules and flaunting it, right? So I think there's a discussion to have on both, where it's okay, is 15, is it difficult for the ROs? Yes. Is it a better reflection of what a production factory gun is right now that makes it somewhat more accessible to the members that shoot at club matches, which really should be a more significant driving factor than anything else? Then okay, again, these are all options. Now, as far as the hit factors themselves, that would probably have to be a discussion that takes place, especially if we get to, say, the end of 2023, right? And the idea of increasing magazine capacity becomes something that the membership are really looking towards and supporting, in whatever format that becomes. Then that becomes a real question of how we evaluate that. And as far as I know, there's we're basically trying to do this in a vacuum, and I would it would be nice for us not to necessarily make a guess.
That's why I'm bringing it up now, so we have a whole year to maybe think about that. Like,
I think you should make it a provisional division. Fuck it, let's go.
It's an existing division already.
I don't care. Let's just call it provisional.
Make it
the other thought
production. That's a new provisional.
From now on, if you want to change your grips, provisional division. You want to put slide ride or something?
We do production light and production heavy.
Oh my God, we'll have provisional divisions everywhere. How many divisions? And you're not a math guy, so we're screwed if you're in charge, bro. I'm just saying, we got to get another Asian in there and get help.
Yeah.
Get some help over there.
Or you just make the hit factors kind of like maybe ridiculously high for a little bit and see where they land, to try to maybe not allow people for a time to like jump up in classes that they don't deserve yet, and then after and then evaluate and then redo the hit factors. Maybe I don't know.
I want to clarify something with the hit factors, because I think it only depends on specific classifiers. So the ones that have a lot of movement and high round count, like there's one where you're shooting 24 rounds, that's going to change because you have one reload instead of 2 reloads, so that's going to change that hit factor. But the ones where you're standing and shooting 8 rounds, that's not going to change, right? Like that won't change. So maybe what you do is remove the ones that have the extra reloads in it and don't even allow those to be classifiers for those at that time. Then once we have everything set and standardized, then you can throw those back in there. So you just limit the ones for that specific mag change until you have enough time. So again, that's the problem, is it becomes almost a provisional division because you can't give them all the classifiers, because anything that has 24 rounds, you're going to eliminate an extra reload.
Or you just make the hit factors the same as like limited on those ones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that. I don't know enough about that. So they changed the hit factors for that so that nobody's. I that was the thing though. Do they care? Like that's a lot of extra work to.
But then at the same time, if you get, you'll get some paper GMs, but at the same point, most of those guys probably aren't going to show up to a major, and if they did, they'd probably get demolished anyway.
Right.
So it's like whatever. But
Yeah.
It's. I mean, we are actually going through the process of evaluating classifiers next year. Potentially retiring some or modifying some.
Good. All movement from now on. Everything should be moving because that's what the sport is. There's rarely. Oh, and eliminate that Virginia count shit. Listen, you're the president. Get rid of Virginia count. That shit is stupid. No one likes it. Not even the people that say they like it. They only like it because they did good. Get rid of that shit. Thank you. That's it.
I would say keep Virginia for level 1 matches so we can make some of our stages like interesting and stupid, but like,
So I will say the biggest problem with Virginia count is it's very hard on an RO. That's a very difficult stage to score if they're not experienced. So sometimes you'll get people like they don't understand the extra shot, extra hit, the extra shot, not an extra hit. That's a very difficult for people to. I saw it at nationals with experienced ROs that were like, extra shot, was it an extra hit? Was it not? I mean, and again, they got it right, but it was just like, holy shit! Like the fact that you have to think that hard about a score, that's difficult. Right?
We should direct them to the NROI podcast for clarification.
So, did you answer Tyler's second question? We did, right?
I feel like it.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
about the hit factors.
Yeah.
About the
Okay.
hit
Cool.
factors.
Yeah. Good point, Tyler. I'm glad you brought that up because I never even thought about it. Oh, Aaron. Good job, bro. That's a great job. So, all right, Todd, go ahead, man. You had your questions to Yimin. Go ahead.
The question was on the provisional round. I haven't fully read the rules. Do we have to stay at a year, or can you extend that after if you don't have enough data?
No, it could definitely be extended by a year. So minimum is 12 months. At the end of 12 months, there's a number of options that are available, which up to and including, hey, we need 12 months for extend the data collection process.
So there's a minimum for the provisionals. You have to do it for 12 months.
Hold on, let me take a look at that right now.
Come on, Todd, you suck, man. That's your job.
I was like, I knew
to have that shit down. You can't leave that shit up to me and Tyler. We're the talent.
You're not the talent.
I just sit here.
All the talent.
Tyler just sits in the background. He's just like, whatever.
I'm
dude.
just dry firing.
Your gun blurred out, dude. Don't show that thing. It
Dude,
blurred it.
oh, it green screened out.
It's green screen. I was just gonna say that.
I actually got the new aluminum lock grips. Very nice.
Yeah, you like them?
They're very nice.
Is it the weight or is it texture or is it both?
It's the texture. It feels like silicon carbide, but without the silicon carbide. Very lightweight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the wrong direction, dude. You got to go heavier.
After initial review period, we can either remove provisional status, making it a permanent division, or to no longer pursue data collection. You can also adjust the equipment rule set, and then you can also extend provisional status for up to additional 12 months. During that time, you can't make any equipment changes unless required by law. And at the end of 24 months, we either need to vote to make it a permanent division or end the data collection on the proposed division.
So 24 months is the max time then.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So at that point, when 24 months rolls around, it's either keep it or get rid of it.
Yep.
Well, that's the way the bylaw currently reads.
Interesting. Nice. I mean, 2 years gives you some good data, I would assume. I'm assuming that, are they going to start trying to push the surveys a little bit more? Like on this type of information, like this kind of stuff, just to kind of keep people, I guess, happy with what they've been asking for, like to open up a little more information? Are you guys going to start pushing the surveys a little bit more for this kind of stuff when you do the provisionals? Like, hey, do you like it? Do you hate it? That kind of stuff, or no?
I think we're still going to be continuing with the survey process. Part of it is us really working through the process of developing adequate surveys or just adequate data collection from the membership, so that we're not just asking, so that we could get good data. That is still kind of a work in progress. Getting better at it, but as depending on how you word the survey, that kind of influences the data that you get from it.
Right.
Yep.
Todd, you got anything else for him, brother?
That's really it. And I just want to reiterate that I like the survey part, and I really hope we get the data on it. But listening, the survey part at least lets us know that our conversations not necessarily always went past our board of directors or whoever you're talking to, but we know at least the voices are heard and accounted for in the survey.
Right.
Very good. All right. Yeman, you got anything? Any questions for me? You have any questions for the guys? Do you have anything you want to talk about? Anything we missed?
Really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate you guys having me on the show tonight. So just for everyone else that's listening, the survey is probably your most efficient way to let us know what you think about the proposed changes. That'll be on the USPSA website. You can also email us at board@uspsa.org. That'll reach all the relevant personnel that will have a say. And last but not least, these are all just proposed. The only thing that is actually coming up for vote is the rules audit at the end of January. So if you have something specific about the rules changes and the potential for limited optics to become a provisional division, again, it may not be passed. There are a lot of options that are out there, but those are the only two things. Everything else equipment gear related, hey, you guys get a whole year to talk to us about how you either love, hate, or how you would modify the idea.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I think it's, I'm really glad to have you on. It was, there was a lot of information. I feel like I had a lot of conversations about that weren't public online. So it was nice to have these, get answers for some of the stuff I asked for me personally, because I definitely had some questions. I mean, I had some answers that I figured were exactly what you answered because, you know, you're the president and you're supposed to know everything and you're supposed to have the answer. And if you haven't fixed it in 4 months, you're terrible at your job and you should be instantly fired.
Banned.
Yep.
Banned.
Oh,
you did not say banned. Oh, Tyler, you're next. You're next.
That's why I'm switching to PCC.
You got a whole group of people that are definitely not voting for you now, bro. But before I let you go, do you have anything to say for your? Oh, go ahead, Todd.
I've got one last thing, and I think I did actually listen to the choice podcast.
NRI podcast.
Rule changes.
The NRI podcast.
And the one thing that they said, and it brought it up when you were talking about it at the end, was social media posts are not the way to get stuff across to the board.
What?
The surveys and the emails are the way, because, and I think they said it, you listened to it probably 5 or 6 times at least during that. And how much do you guys do you even read anything on it, or do you just pay attention to what comes across the email and the surveys going forward?
I mean, the social media stuff is a survey at best. I mean, it's not really good data. It really isn't good data, right? I mean,
dude, you're being very politically correct right now, because that shit is not a survey. Not even a little.
You know what? I did not think this was possible, but like I thought I was going to do a lot more on social media, and then I took over as president, and I'm like, dude, I don't even have time for social media. Like, it's like emails and phone calls. Like, that's really taking up a lot more of my time than I even thought possible. So, you know, this idea of like, hey, I'm gonna try to communicate with the membership through Instagram. Like, I get, you know, with these updates. I mean, that was what I thought in the beginning, and then I get done at the end of the day and go, when was I supposed to do this?
So you mean that's why there's an actual job of a marketing director, so that they're supposed to do that stuff and you're supposed to do the presidential stuff, right?
Well, the presidential stuff is also, you know, communication, right? And so that's you know, that's part of the learning process, figuring out how to push out a message, you know, what avenues to push that out, what sources, you know, what media to use. So it's all a work in progress.
Yeah. I actually, I tried to have Troy on the podcast. I hope this podcast will nudge him in, because I have so many questions for him about his job. His job is terrible. Like, he's got one of the worst jobs, in my opinion, in USPSA. Like, you just can't, you can't make anybody happy in his job. But I'm very interested in his process of how he does things. Like the Colorado thing was amazing to me. Like, obviously it sucks it happened, but like how they rebounded and found staff and changed. I know what it's like to find ROs just for your local. Like, I can't imagine doing a national level, like, you know, Jake's job and his job, Troy's job, are two jobs that I don't think I'd ever want. Like they just seem like miserable freaking jobs. Like they're just a lot of working parts, and you have people hate you regardless of how good you do it. But it's just like, I would really like to have him on. I have a lot of questions for him. So hopefully, he understands that this is a peaceful place. I'm not here to, hammer people down. I have lots
Safe
of questions. Yeah, well, this definitely ain't no safe place, but I would just really like to have that conversation. I have a lot of questions for, like, arbitration is a big thing I'd like to talk about to him, like how the process works, those things, like how he finds staff, the process of finding staff. There's a lot of stuff that he does I don't think he gets credit for. Just like you.
Oh, you should just talk to Todd and Tyler.
Yeah.
Hey, I need some guys for arbitration. Hey,
Yeah.
you guys know what you're doing. Come over here and deal with this arbitration.
Right. Well, that's why I wanted to have that. That's why I wanted to have him on, because there's some stuff that happened in my arbitration, which I had one that Todd and Tyler knew about. So it changed the way they did their arbitration because of my experience and my complaint with the way I was treated, or my case was treated. I was treated. I didn't even have a conversation. That was why I was so frustrated. But it was interesting how, because of them having experience with me, or hearing about my experience, they said, hey, wait. We need to make a little more effort and hear the whole story and not just listen to this little piece of paper that they wrote on. So it was just interesting. I just like stuff like that. I like to talk to him about. I think I'd like to have him on regularly because there's a lot of stuff that he deals with. Like, this is a great example. Like, look at all the stuff that we just learned with having you on. Like, dude, there was stuff that came up that I was like, oh shit. Like Aaron bringing up the comment about classifiers. I would have never thought twice about adding rounds changes classifier scores. Oh, well, shit. That absolutely changes things now. Like, you have to think about that when you change a division. And I would have never thought about it. It's just, I guess I just don't care about classifiers at this point, but a lot of people do. And it does change things for shooters. So, but yeah, man, it was awesome having you on, dude. I'm really, really excited to have you on. And I hope to have you on more. Like, I would like to have you on maybe once a month and just kind of have updates. Dude, I'll sit back, you do the talking, and just kind of let you do your thing and kind of bullshit.
Never sit back and let
bullshit.
do the talking.
Hey, wait. Did I let you ask him a question, Todd?
I'm just saying you can't.
No, you don't get to talk. That's it. Shut up.
You can't
That's
do
enough
it.
out of you. No one cares what you have to say, Todd. So,
Wow.
but, yeah. So that's.
Wait,
go ahead.
Are you going to be back for Florida State, or?
I'm not going to Florida State.
Fair enough.
So I'm not going to Florida State. I'm not going to Florida State.
Yeah. Well,
I will be back for the Pan American.
You're going to be back for the Pan American Extreme, so I'll be shooting the pre-match for that.
Yeah.
I'll try to stick around Thursday. There's some stuff I need to talk about with Gorka, and then you are definitely going out to Puerto Rico, right?
No, not going to Puerto Rico. So
for some reason I thought you were reg for Puerto Rico.
I wasn't invited to Puerto Rico.
Well, I mean, you know people who know people.
It's just not a match that I would want to pay for. So that's all. Like,
yeah, fair enough.
This year I'm trying to grow my business as well as my personal self in the shooting world. I'm trying to work on some sponsorship stuff. I don't know how that's going to work because I'm not really good at asking for stuff. Like, I don't know. That's why I'm big about sponsorship in this sport, because it should be a give and take, and a lot more giving than taking. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not good at it. I've always been like, work really hard. That's why this sport to me is very difficult, because I bust my ass. I work really hard at this sport. I work to get good, and that doesn't always equal sponsorship. So, and just kind of how it works in this sport. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So, but either way, it is what it is. And I hope to see you actually when I come over there. I'm going to come. I have a couple of classes coming up. I have a class in Georgia on March 11th and 12th. Illinois, May 6th and 7th. Texas, May 27th and 28th. Wow, that's very busy. South Carolina, June 10th and 11th. And then California, June 15th and 16th. And I actually just signed up to do a class in Pennsylvania. Let me see if I think I put it in my calendar here, hopefully. Yes. So I have a class in Pennsylvania on the 15th and 16th of July now. So I just finished doing that, and I'm actually trying to get a class in Michigan. So my goal this year was to really like bang out some classes. Like I want to do this for a living, dude. I really enjoy the shit out of coaching people. So I'm trying to grow that part of my life. But in California, really, like I really want to do some classes out there. I really enjoyed the shit out of that class. Dude, I didn't know it got cold in California. Like
Yes,
it was
it does.
freaking cold at that range, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've got an atmospheric river showing up in about 10 hours. So everybody's preparing for the storm of the century again.
Yeah. Oh, really? The storm of the century.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
it gets 60 and everyone's like, holy shit, it's over.
No, I mean, no, it's supposed to be like 8 inches of rain in the next day, which is,
Oh,
yeah, it's a lot more than we normally get.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't rain there. Everything's in a drought, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
not right now. We
Yeah.
apparently have a lot of snow up in the mountains, but we're still in a drought. So we'll be
Nice.
in a
It
drought.
was
for the rest of our
crazy
lives.
seeing some of the photos recently of
Yeah. You guys were flooded.
Richmond like last week. I mean, that was
Ankles
I
deep.
don't remember ever seeing pools of water that big when I was there. Like that's crazy.
Well, that actually drained pretty quickly. If you were around when I first started, yeah, those lakes would have stayed out there for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. If you Ye-Man, you want to give your Instagram stuff so that they can all follow you in case you start posting up some juicy stuff for USPSA or no?
Oh God, I think you already tagged me on your post. What is it? yeman.lin at whatever.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only one that's out there.
Yeah. So that'll tell you he
Oh my
doesn't
God,
care
I
about
don't-
social media.
No, it's more like, wait, what's my Instagram account again? Oh,
I don't know, but I'll try to
It's
remember to tag the
production
proper. I want the production disrepute.
Tom will tag it and we'll make sure we put the surveys and stuff and all the rules in the podcast too on the link.
So that means
It'll be on
Todd.
the screen
Todd will do
here.
that. Yeah, Todd
I
will do
already
all that.
know.
I ain't
I already
doing
know
all
who's
that.
doing it.
I'll be tagging Ye-Man, and then Todd will do the rest because I ain't putting all that survey shit on my podcast. He can do that. But yeah, so go check it out. Go check out the surveys. That's the only way we get anything changed or get anything the way you want. And if you don't do the surveys, you don't read the surveys and actually follow the surveys and actually learn what's in those surveys, you really shouldn't be bitching and complaining about anything. So let your voice be heard, put it out there. And if they don't listen to you, at least you gave it a try. That's how it works. You know, it's not just your membership, it's everybody. So, all right, guys, thank you for joining me. Really enjoyed it. Ye-Man, appreciate you, brother. And
Tom, always a pleasure.
we'll see you on the range. Screw you, Todd. You don't get to say nothing.